Order. Questions to the Prime Minister. Alan Michael.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the House will be aware, today is the 5th anniversary of the 7th of July terrorist attacks on central London. I'm sure everyone in this House, people in our country, will remember where they were and what they were doing when that dreadful news came through. Our hearts should go out to the families and friends of those who died. They will never be forgotten, and our thoughts are also with those who were injured physically and mentally by the dreadful events of that day. It was a dreadful day, but it is also a day that will remain, I believe, a symbol of the enduring bravery of the British people. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in the House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Alan Michael.
Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Prime Minister if he will join me in congratulating the people of Somaliland on the successful, peaceful and transparent election of a new president? As the Somaliland Republic has now been a beacon of democracy in Africa for nearly 20 years, will the Prime Minister ensure that the UK's promise that a new government with democratic credentials would receive increased engagement from the UK?
Well, I think the honourable gentleman is absolutely right to raise this issue. It's an important issue and an area of the world of enormous importance for our own security. I join him in welcoming the peaceful and credible elections in Somaliland. These are an example of genuine democracy in an area of the world not noted for it, and the UK provided funding for election supervision. We are keen to engage with the new government, and I believe the key, and I'm sure the whole House would agree, is to prevent terrorist groups establishing their foothold in Somaliland that they have in Somalia. This is vital, and yes, the government will continue to engage.
James Gray.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will not be surprised to hear that I intend to keep campaigning to keep the Hercules fleet RAF Lynham in my own constituency as long as I possibly can. But if at the end of the day it does indeed move to Brize Norton in his constituency and takes with the jobs and economic prosperity that goes with it, will he at least use his every good office to make sure that we find some way of bringing jobs and economic prosperity back into the vacated site at Lynham?
My honourable friend has fought a long and noble campaign over this issue and has made very strong arguments. I know how strong the arguments are because every time I get into a Hercules, whether in Afghanistan or elsewhere, the pilots always immediately complain about having to move from his constituency to my constituency. He makes a very good point about economic development, and we'll make sure that if this goes ahead, that we do see good, strong economic development in his constituency.
Harriet Harman.
Mr. Speaker, can I support what the Prime Minister has said on the 5th anniversary of the terrible 7/7 bombings? Today we remember those who were killed and injured and their families and friends. We pay tribute to the emergency services who responded with such care and such courage, and we stand with the government in our determination to defeat those who would bring terror to our streets. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of progress on tackling domestic violence, but still every year hundreds of thousands of women are victims. Many of the perpetrators are sent to prison, rightly in my view. Now the Justice Secretary has embarked on a sentencing review and has suggested that short sentences don't work. But it's often not rehabilitation that's needed in domestic violence cases, but a very clear message to the perpetrator that it mustn't be repeated, and a very clear message to the victim that the justice system takes this seriously. And that's what a short sentence can do. Can the Prime Minister confirm that the sentencing review will not stop magistrates giving short prison sentences for domestic violence?
Well, I think the Honourable... First of all, can I thank her for what she says about the anniversary and the tribute she rightly paid to the emergency services who played an unbelievably brilliant role on that day and the many people who helped them. I think she's absolutely right to raise the issue of domestic violence. For too many years, this was an issue that police forces and prosecutors didn't deal with properly. And to be fair to the last government, good progress has been made over the last decade with this issue. I do agree that there are occasions when short sentences are required, and indeed the Lord Chancellor takes exactly the same view. He said in the speech, very important to read the speech and not just the headline. He said, very good. In my opinion, abolishing all short sentences altogether would be a step too far. We need penalties for the antisocial recidivist, and we do need to make sure that magistrates have that power. But the review is important to try and make sure that we get this right.
Harman.
Well, I thank the Prime Minister for that reassurance. It is reassuring that the Lib Dem promise that they made in the election is not going to be carried forward. And can I congratulate him? I notice the Justice Secretary is not looking very cheerful. Perhaps he should go down to Ronnie Scott's to cheer himself up. Can I congratulate the Prime Minister for, instead of listening to his new partner, listening to his mother? Because in the election he told us that his mother was a magistrate and that she told him magistrates need the powers of short sentences. Quite often it is the right thing for somebody not to listen to their new partner but to listen to their mother. So I'm glad he's done this on that occasion. Can I turn to something else mentioned in the election campaign? In the election campaign, he said any minister who came to him with cuts to front-line services, he said, and I quote, will be sent straight back to their department to go away and think again. Does that apply to the Home Secretary?
Well, first of all, can I say there are, in my experience, there's very few people more cheerful than the Lord Chancellor. He's celebrating his 40th anniversary in this House. He likes to point out that he was elected to this House before the Chancellor of the Exchequer was actually born. And he brings enormous experience and good humour to all our councils. I'm delighted the Right Honourable Lady has brought up the issue of my mother, who served on the Newbury bench for many, many years. I have to say, one of the biggest challenges she had, and the most often, as well as me, and one of the reasons she needed to hand out so many short sentences was mostly to badly behave CND protesters outside Greenham Common. Right. So, she was... I don't know whether she was there. Anyway, if the Right Honourable Lady wants to have more episodes of Listen with Mother, I'm very happy at any time she would like. In terms of the Home Office, of course we have to make savings. We have to make savings across government. It's not going to be easy, but absolutely we must make sure that we do everything we can to protect the front line. But I simply don't believe, when you look at the Home Office budget, there aren't examples of waste and inefficiency and things that we can do better. And I would say to the Honourable Lady this: she went into the election calling for 20% cuts in every department. That was her policy, a policy of 5% cuts each year. Ours is 6% cuts each year. So these are Labour cuts as well.
Well, we went into the election very clear to protect police numbers. I'm asking him a straightforward question, which he has so far failed to answer, because at Prime Minister's questions he was asked by my honourable friend, the member for Westminster North, this very simple, straightforward question: will there be fewer police officers at the end of this Parliament compared to now? That's what she asked him. He skirted round her question and didn't answer it. Will he answer it now?
Yes. Of course there are going to be difficult decisions, but let me a very simple question was put to the Shadow Home Secretary before the last election. The question, just wait for it. Andrew Neil, can you guarantee, if you form the next government, that police numbers won't fall? Alan Johnson, can you confirm that? Alan Johnson, no.
But what he did... What he did go on to say, I think that's a selective quoting. What he did go on to say, what he did go on to say is that we would guarantee the funding which would ensure the police numbers and the numbers of police community support officers. We were absolutely clear about this. Now, his Lib Dem partners said that they would have 3,000 more police on the beat. He said he would protect frontline services. Are either of those promises going to be kept? People who are concerned about crime want to know.
There's nothing selective about the word no. That is what the Home Secretary, Shadow Home Secretary was asked when he was asked if he could guarantee there wouldn't be cuts in police numbers. Let's remember why we're here. We've got a £155 billion budget deficit. The Labour Party went into the last election promising 50% cuts in capital spending and 20% cuts in department spending. We are clearing up the mess that they made. When I sat at the G20 table last weekend and you look round the table and think, who's got the biggest budget deficit? Is it Brazil? No. Is it Spain? No. Is it Argentina? No. They left us in a situation where we get lectured by Argentina on the state of our budget deficit.
Harriet Harman.
If he'd have read the OBR report, he'd have seen that their forecast for government borrowing was lower than the forecast that we made before the election. And probably if he'd have read the OBR report, he wouldn't have found that the chair has resigned straight away after being appointed. But isn't it clear that this is the government's crime policy? He's threatening to take away police officers that people want on the beat. He's cutting down the right of local residents for CCTV. He's making it harder for the police to use DNA evidence. Those are his policies. Let me ask him a very straightforward question. Does he think those policies are more likely to make crime go down or go up?
The point is that under the last government, violent crime and gun crime went through the roof. The Honourable Lady, they almost doubled. Yeah, no, the shadow Foreign Secretary is shouting and waving his head. Gun crime and violent crime almost doubled under the last government. Yes. I think it's time. I think it's time for honourable members. I think it's time for... There's going to be a rush of new Labour memoirs coming up, and I think it's time for honourable members. Perhaps they should start with the report of the spin doctor who worked for the last Prime Minister.
Order, no, we won't bother with that, I say to the Prime Minister. Harriet Harman. Order. I'm very clear what is in order and what isn't, and that's the end of the matter. Harriet Harman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before the election, from the Conservatives, it was all about tougher policies and more police. Now all that seems to have sailed off with those prison ships he was promising to buy. Now, we were very clear. We said, when we first came into government, we would bring crime down, and we did. Will he promise that under his government he will keep crime coming down? Will he make that promise? If he won't make that promise, it's only because he knows, as we all know, his policies will put crime up.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I was only trying to boost sales, I think, but there we are. I can promise the Honourable Lady one thing. Let me promise the Honourable Lady one thing. I won't be wandering around my constituency in a stab-proof vest. That's what it came to under the last government. Gun crime went up. Violent crime went up. Reoffending of prisoners went up. £45,000 for the cost of every prison place. More than 10% of them shouldn't have been there because they're foreigners. Half of them are on drugs, and 40% of them commit a crime on the way out of prison. That is the record that we've inherited, and that's what we'll be clearing up.